Imagine a world where human settlements were just these isolated little towns, right? Totally scattered, disconnected. Now imagine witnessing the exact moment in history when those modest towns literally transformed into sprawling, highly organized, global networks of ancient superpowers. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to unpack the incredible story of how human civilization basically leveled up. We'll be looking at the engineering, the economics, and the revolutionary technologies that forever changed how we live together. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to journey back 5,000 years to explore the rise of the city-state, the ziggurats and daily Sumerian life, the massive cuneiform revolution, the arrival of the Akkadian Empire, and finally, the formation of the world's very first global network. Let's get into it.
Part 1. The Rise of the City-State.
So, to really wrap our heads around this monumental shift that happened around 3500 BCE in West Asia, we've got to start with the concept of the city-state. Now, this wasn't just a big town. We're talking about a fully sovereign state centered around a city that completely ruled all the territories surrounding it. Over a span of about 2,000 years, starting in Mesopotamia, these incredible governing systems just took hold. And the big four that eventually emerged in this region were the Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian civilizations. But it's the Sumerians who truly kick-started this whole urban revolution.
The Sumerians, who were located in what's now southern Iraq, were absolutely the ultimate pioneers of urban engineering. I mean, they didn't just build cities, they built the complex infrastructure needed to actually keep them alive. They were the very first to create these massive systems of dams and canals for irrigation. They completely mastered the flow of water to guarantee their food supply. Plus, they pioneered the use of mud bricks and burnt bricks to construct houses, huge defensive walls, and just staggering architectural structures. They literally laid the foundational bricks for city-based governance.
Moving on to Part 2. Ziggurats and Sumerian life.
Okay, so what did life actually look like inside these groundbreaking new cities? Well, just take a look at the sheer scale of this architecture. This is a ziggurat. It's a massive, stepped, pyramid-shaped temple with several floors, and right at the very top is a main holy sanctuary. Imagine being a citizen 5,000 years ago, watching a high priest, who is a major part of the ruling elite by the way, ascend those huge steps to commune with the gods of floods and winds. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a spiritual center, it was actually the central treasury of the city too. The surrounding walls only had one single entrance, so all the economic activities, agriculture, trade, transport, they were all entirely tied to the absolute authority of this one temple. It's kind of like Wall Street and the Vatican wrapped into one massive mud brick mountain.
But, the Sumerians definitely weren't the only ones innovating at this time. Let's draw a quick comparison here. While the Sumerians were busy mastering canal irrigation over in Mesopotamia, their contemporaries in the Indian subcontinent, the early Harappans, were tackling the exact same survival problems, but with brilliant engineering of their own. For instance, in the foothills of Baluchistan, they built these check dams known as gabar bands across streams. Down at Delavira in Kutch, they engineered this incredibly elaborate system to divert streams into deep, rock-cut, interconnected tanks. And at Lothal, they built a massive dockyard entirely out of burnt bricks. It's just a fascinating parallel in human ingenuity across completely different regions of the world.
Now, what's really fascinating about this artwork is the incredible detail it gives us into the everyday lives of the Sumerians. This decorated box shows actual scenes of their society. The cities had these grand palaces for kings and smaller brick houses for regular folks whose lives mostly centered around farming, metalworking, pottery, and making textiles. But if you look closely at that bottom panel, you can actually see a wheeled cart. It visually captures this bustling society of merchants, traders, and craftsmen just navigating their daily lives in great style, complete with elaborate draperies and ornaments.
We can kind of summarize their massive contributions with this Sumerian rule of three. Number one, they invented the wheeled cart and the sailboat, which completely revolutionized transportation and trade. Number two, they developed the advanced mathematical calculations that were absolutely necessary to build those massive ziggurats and map out agricultural fields. And number three, and honestly, this is my absolute favorite, they invented a number system based entirely on the number 60. So think about this. Every single time you check your watch and count 60 seconds in a minute or 60 minutes in an hour, or, measure a 360-degree circle, you are actively using 5,000-year-old Sumerian technology. It's just amazing how their minds still shape our daily reality, right?
Okay, Part 3. The Cuneiform Revolution.
Now, perhaps the greatest legacy wasn't actually in numbers, but in words. Around 3300 BCE came the invention of cuneiform. This is literally one of the earliest systems of writing ever developed by humans. The word itself comes from the Latin word cunis, which simply means wedge. And because writing was such a highly specialized, cutting-edge piece of technology at the time, the scribes who managed to master it enjoyed a super high social status. They were right up there with the priests and priestesses we talked about earlier.
And, well, here it is. This is the very thing that changed human memory forever. Just imagine a scribe taking a sharp reed stylus and carefully, methodically pressing it hundreds of times into the damp surface of this soft clay tablet. By 3000 BCE, this wedge-shaped script was being used all over Mesopotamia by completely different city-states, even if they spoke totally different languages. Through these little baked pieces of mud, they recorded everything. We're talking great myths and epics, strict law codes, educational treatises, and even just the daily, mundane receipts from potters, shipbuilders, and farm workers. For the first time, it gave permanence to human thought.
Let's move on and see how this all builds in Part 4. Enter the Akkadian Empire.
Let's just track the momentum of history for a second. We have the rise of the Sumerians around 3500 BCE, their incredible invention of writing in 3300 BCE, and then a major shift happens in 2334 BCE. The power of the Sumerians was suddenly overshadowed by a brand new city-state a bit further north, Akkad. Under their famous leader, King Sargon, the Akkadians consolidated power over multiple different regions of Mesopotamia. Now, they spoke a totally different language, Akkadian, but they were super smart about it. They just adopted the Sumerian cuneiform script to write it all down. By doing this, King Sargon effectively established the world's very first dynastic empire.
Which brings us to Part 5, the first global network.
You see, Sargon didn't just want to conquer his immediate neighbors. He kind of wanted the whole world, and this brilliantly illustrates the massive leap in scale that took place. On the left side, we have that very localized, domestic view of early Sumerian city life we looked at earlier. But on the right, just look at this vast geographical map covering the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, stretching all the way to the Indian subcontinent. The Akkadian Empire catalyzed this wildly expansive, multi-regional trade network that connected completely different civilizations across thousands of miles.
So, let's break down exactly who was trading with whom here. According to the actual cuneiform tablets belonging to King Sargon himself, the Mesopotamians were deeply connected with territories to the east. They traded with Dilmun, which is modern-day Bahrain, and Magan, which is today's Oman. But even more impressively, they traded directly with Meluhha, which historians identify as the Sindhu-Sarasvati or Harappan civilization. Across these absolutely vast distances, they were exchanging luxury goods and raw materials, things like semi-precious stone beads, ivory, timber, gold dust, and copper. This was definitely not just some local bartering system, this was a highly coordinated international supply chain right in the middle of the ancient world.
Which brings us to a final, kind of thought-provoking question to end this explainer. The Harappans over in the east were obviously trading heavily with the Akkadians, right? And they also had their own script, completely contemporary to cuneiform. But here's the catch. While we have successfully deciphered Mesopotamian cuneiform, and can literally read King Sargon's own words about his trade routes, the Harappan script remains utterly undeciphered to this day. We just can't read it. So I'll leave you with this. How much does our understanding of a civilization change when its script is deciphered, compared to when it's just lost to time? It really shows both the incredible power and the profound fragility of historical memory. Thank you so much for joining me as we decoded the dawn of the interconnected world.